Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Professor, where we respond to your questions on history, on the principles of good government, on culture, on public affairs, on all those things that are of concern to us living together as Canadians.
And here Andre asks about, those politicians you see, they go to a Sikh temple, they will put on the special headgear, and they will go to the wall in Jerusalem and put a kippah on, or they will wear a sombrero if they're in Mexico, and so on and so forth. And so he's asking, why is it then that cultural appropriation, that concept, has such a negative connotation when, in fact, or he's asking this, isn't that not part of the globalization process?
Yeah, that's a great series of questions wrapped up nicely into one.
I did a good job.
And because part of it, of course, is the patronizing way in which the politicians will go into the temple. If you are going into somebody else's religious establishment and they say, recognizing as we do that you are not in fact of our faith, we nevertheless welcome you here, but we request that you do as we do, then it's actually a sign of respect to put on the kippah or take off your shoes or whatever it may be that they ask you to do, up to a point. Because our Prime Minister did recently go to a mosque where the men and the women were separated. Although he didn't send his female ministers up to the balcony with the sisters, he did have them come in through a side door. And that, I thought, was respecting something that probably shouldn't be respected. You don't have to go there. But there's this much larger question of cultural appropriation, because Trudeau doesn't go around in a kippah when he's not at a synagogue. He has many annoying habits, but that's not one of them. He does have an Aboriginal tattoo, and one wonders what that's meant to be about, which takes us closer to this territory, which I find kind of odd, where you'll do something, like people wearing feather headdresses at festivals to show their support for Canada's Aboriginal people, and they got a hot pepper in the eye in response. It was like, oh, how dare you, it's an insult to us that you are acknowledging our existence and celebrating, and you got it wrong anyway.
Thanks for nothing, yeah.
There was just an outburst about this Ungava gin that was being advertised in Europe with pictures of models who turned out were Asian. And so there was some outburst from an Inuit.
For some
We're
reason.
not Asian. We're saying, well, your ancestors did come across the Bering Strait, but point taken. It seems to me if you're going to be hyping this theme of Ungava and the local plants that are used to flavor the gin and so on, you might as well hire some Inuit to be the Inuit. That sort of does make sense. But then they went on, and what's with these sexy parkas anyways? Like, what, are you saying you don't have good-looking women? Was that what you just said? Or is it sexist to acknowledge that there is such a thing as a good-looking woman and that someone might actually think it was a good thing? So now if we go into the hideous world of political correctness, devouring
you can't
its
win.
children.
That's right, yeah.
But I think more fundamentally, the question about isn't it part of the process of globalization and indeed of cultural dynamism gets to the heart of it. Because if you look at British culture, what you are seeing is a series of mostly highly effective practices that have been refined and evolved over thousands of years by the incorporation of new elements. Britain's a very open country. Some people have shown up to trade, some people have shown up to intermarry, some people have shown up to invade, loot, and pillage. It's a mixed bag. But, the very language English comes from the Angles, these Germanic invaders in the post-Roman period. And then the Normans came, and the addition of this half-Latin French made English remarkably rich, powerful, and supple with a much larger vocabulary than a lot of other languages. And that reminds me of a point that Thomas Sowell made, that cultures are not museum pieces, they are working tools. And in an open culture, whether we're globalizing or whether it's the 14th century, if you're plodding along doing things one way and then some weirdo foreigner shows up and is doing it in a way that you notice actually works better, anything from clothing to cooking to expressing yourself, you'd be an idiot not to pick it up. To say, oh no, that's how the French do it. Well, I'm not French, as opposed to, hey, that guy's got a fork. It's just natural that we should adapt. And when you get people who, how shall I put this, have a chip on their shoulder about history, because it really does come down to that. And they say, you can't do anything we do. You don't respect us. You can't do anything we do. But if we are doing something you're doing, that's a mark of respect. We're going, hey, that guy had a better idea than I did. I'm going to do that.
Exactly, yeah.
And at the same time, there's a determination, we're not going to do what you do. This is the Indian way. We will not adopt the white man way. It's completely fatuous, because there they are on their cell phones driving their gasoline-powered vehicles and things like that. Of course, the 20th century and the 21st century have washed over them in ways they cannot possibly change. Would they like to go back to not being able to read and write? Because there were no alphabets in North America prior to the coming of the Europeans. So the claim is built on monstrous falsehoods, and that is never a good way to proceed. But more than that, it's an attempt to condemn the people who are supposedly the holders of this museum piece culture that's so wonderful, to condemn them not to adapt, not to move along, not to pick up better ideas, not to be part of this great, exciting interchange. And I'm no fan of modernity. There's a lot wrong with the world. Electricity, good for mankind? I don't think so. But since it's here, I certainly use it.